Well, you might be wondering what is going on with this dance craze. I just got this cool hat. Let me turn some lights on so you can see this hat. Just makes you want to dance, doesn't it? You should get one of these. All right, let me turn this down. And you would never believe it, but the name of this song is called Doris Day. But I just got this, and it's a fun hat, and if you're not familiar with the steampunk craze or the movement, this is what it's all about right here. So I may put this on periodically. This would be a fun hat to wear in the workshop, don't you think? I think so. Well, we're all about an unboxing today, so let's move into that. Ooh, that was a little bit of a workout. I'm liking that. Well, you can see something kind of unusual about this setup today. We have His Majesty the King of Sweden on top of this box that we're going to unbox. So that tells you right away what? Yes, yes. Inside of this box is some type of Swedish beauty. So we're going to have to dig into this and start checking it out. In the meantime, I will put on some more music. And I'm going to take this hat off for right now because, woo, that actually makes you a little bit warm. I can't imagine somebody wears a hat all the time, but some people do. Some people like wearing hats, they just do. But it's like wearing a mask almost. Boy, oh boy, does that just heat you up. That just super heats you. Well, I should mention too, before we launch into this unboxing, that we are officially, as most of you know, past the milestone of 9,000 subscribers. And Hans and I, as you know, have been working on setting up the next contest. And we're really close to announcing that contest. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to video chat with Hans, and I'm going to have him introduce the contest, since the contest is going to be based in Norway/Sweden. I thought it would be cool for him to actually present the contest. So that's what we're going to do. So keep watch for that. And it should be really fun. And again, you have a chance to win a Swedish beauty. So it doesn't get much better than that. Doesn't get much better than that. All right, so that was called Doris Day. And this next one is called Wander. I think we played this before. Here we go. Class is beginning. All right, Your Majesty, I'm going to move you to the side. And I should mention that this particular machine that's in this box was the result of a trade. I sometimes will do that with fellow collectors. Instead of buying a machine from them or them buying a machine from me, they might have a machine that I want. And, you know, we do a swap. So that's kind of what we did in this case. I swapped my machine, which was a Singer 306, for this machine in the box. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this machine yet. I might restore it. I might also have it in reserve as far as being a donor machine for a future Swedish beauty that needs the parts from this machine. And sometimes we do that. They obviously don't manufacture these parts anymore, so we sometimes have to get creative and use a donor machine, kind of like I did way back when I did the restoration for Julia's Husqvarna Viking. That remember that the machine burned up in their house, in her mother's house, and so we went through a restoration to get it back on track again. Okay, so let's jump into this one, and this one is coming from Sheila Franz. Sheila Franz, who's out in Missouri, fellow collector friend of mine. So let's get into this and see what we have. What we have is a lot of newspaper. It looks like shredded newspaper. Looks like something you see in a gerbil cage or a hamster cage. Alright, this ought to be fun. I will get a garbage can so that we've got a way to control where all this stuff goes. Thankfully I don't have a fan blowing right now, or that could really become interesting real quick. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fit all this in my trash can or not. We'll give it a try. Excuse me. I don't believe I've gotten a machine anytime recently, or maybe ever, where somebody used shredded newspaper as the packing material. And I know that newspaper has a lot of versatile purposes. People use it for packing, they use it for insulation, they use it for just a variety of things, but I think this stuff is, from what I'm seeing, is really messy. Ugh. Not to mention my hands will probably be black from the ink by the time I get done with this. I may have to grab a pair of gloves. Alright, that's all I'm going to pull out. I'm already anticipating it's going to be all over the floor. It's going to be all over the floor. And you guys know how I am. I like things to be clean. I like things to be orderly. And this is the answer to not having order and having chaos. So we'll see. I'll see if I can talk my fellow collector friend into not using this material again if she sends me another machine. You hear that, Sheila? No more newspaper, kiddo. No more newspaper unless it's intact, because this stuff is a mess. Oh my gosh. Ooh. Okay, let's see what we can do to try to access this handle. Oh, my best friend right now is a vacuum cleaner. That's what I'm seeing. My best friend right now is a vacuum cleaner. Oh, Lordy. All right, let me set this over here. So this is kind of interesting, the packing method. See that? If anyone has ever had problems with mice or something like that, or if you lived out on a farm, you know what I'm talking about right away. The mice will build these little nests. This looks like a little mouse nest almost, doesn't it? That Sheila used as her packing platform. Not what I would recommend. Not just for self-serving reasons, because it's a mess to unpack, but also it's not going to afford the level of protection that my packing method does. So don't ship me anything with newspaper, please, unless it's just like a whole newspaper. Then that would be interesting, so I can read it about your community and where you're from, and maybe even share it. So, all right, let's toss that to the back. and we'll get this up on the workbench. First of all, I'm going to put on just a little bit more music. So this next one is called Alone, and let's hear what this sounds like. All right. I mean, you can see on the workbench, look at that. Probably doesn't look that bad from there, but it's kind of powdery almost too. Look at that. You know what I'm going to be doing right after the premiere, right? Yeah. So yeah, this is not really, I mean, apart from the irritation of the shredded newspaper, this is not really the ideal packing method. Putting a Husqvarna carrying case into a box and then packing newspaper around it, excuse me, and then putting it in some sort of a garbage bag or some sort of a plastic bag. Y'all can do better than this, I know. So when you send it to the workshop, really show it off and show your knowledge of the packing method so that Sheila will look at that and hopefully learn from you, because that's what we do in the classroom, is we learn from each other. And even collectors can learn stuff as well, even though sometimes they think they can't. So, all right, so let's continue the process and see what we have inside. And again, if you're new to this channel, make sure you angle your scissors away from the case or the machine as you're cutting through layers of whatever they used for a packing protector, so that it doesn't slip and you cause damage. Well, I don't know what the machine is going to look like when we get inside, but I like the look of this case so far, don't you? That's a good looking case. It's a little bit warmer here today. I'm going to turn on my fan because it's actually warm, and then I've got my jacket on as well. So a little bit of air movement can make a big difference, can't it? If you've ever sat out on a porch or something like that in the summer, just if you've got a little fan or something like that running, boy, does that make a big difference. It can just make it go from uncomfortable and miserable to, you can just sit out there all day long, sit out there all afternoon. Okay, so that was Alone, and now we're going to do A Kiss for Amanda. This ought to be interesting. A Kiss for Amanda. I can't help it, folks. That stuff is all over the case too. Oh my gosh. Please don't pack in newspaper, especially shredded newspaper. Ugh. I don't think I'm going to be able to get all this with my little vac. I doubt it. this little vac isn't going to cut it. So all right, we'll just bite the bullet. I'll clean it up after. So you knew right from the introduction with seeing the King of Sweden that that this was a Swedish beauty. Now the question is, which model is this going to be? What are you thinking? Any guesses? I'll put on some more music while you're thinking about it. So that was called A Kiss for Amanda. The next one is called Donnie Disco. Donnie Disco. Oh yeah, you can see the machine right away, so there's not going to be a lot of drama here. All right, here we go. The big unveiling with Sheila's less incredible packing method. Here we go. Well, there's a blue, what is that, a toilet seat cover? Or is it one of those things that goes, is it the cone of shame for a dog? I don't know what the heck this is. What is this? You guys have any idea? It's like a thin foam, and it looks like you'd put it over your head, like a collar or something like that, or put it over a dog's head. Give somebody a haircut, you could slide it over their head, and then the hair would fall on this, and it wouldn't go on their clothing, see? So we just created something. Actually, somebody else created something, but... So let's look at this in the box. You can see that the bobbin case was just sitting in the box, bouncing around, presumably. Sheila, 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 what are we going to do with you? What are we going to do with you? Oh, you guys got to see this. Let me zoom in on this. You got to see this. This is what happens when you don't pack well. And it's underneath the machine too, so I have no idea where it ends, or where it begins. Oh my gosh, it's all the way over there. Ah, that's where the bobbin is. It's underneath the machine. So, if you decide to sell a machine and ship it to somebody, don't have it arrive like this. Or even in this case where I did a trade with Sheila, you don't want to ship something and then have the bobbin, basically floating around in the box and with thread all over the place. It just doesn't create a good impression. So follow my packing method. Seriously, it will make a big difference in how safely your machine gets to where it's going, or if someone else employs it, how safely that machine gets to where you are. So, and it doesn't take that much more time to avoid all that frustration. So any guesses yet? Well, that's a beautiful bed, isn't it? You can't see it. Let me widen the shot. I'm still ranting about the packing job that Sheila did. Oh my gosh. Okay, so there's a better shot at the machine. You can look at that for a little bit. I'm going to put something else on. And And this one is called the Wellington Coffee Shop. The Wellington Coffee Shop. The Wellington Coffee Shop. This is intriguing. Not to mention it makes you thirsty a little bit too, doesn't it? So there's the machine, and you may be hard pressed to guess what it is. You look at the features of the machine and see if that helps. And this is what I was trying to show you before when I had the camera too close, is look at this beautiful bed that came with this trade. Just fabulous. And it even has the little green foot. So many of them lose this little green foot because it becomes brittle and it snaps off. And then you just have a little metal stub, and then you have to get creative and find something that will replace it. Which, if you have the old-fashioned type erasers from the pencils, remember the number 2 pencils from back in the day? Paint it green. Yeah, you're already ahead. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. The spring works nicely. So Sheila doesn't have a clue about packing and didn't watch all of my videos, but she gave me a beautiful bed in this trade, so I'm happy. I'm liking it. And she gave me lots of shredded newspaper too. So if I get a hamster or a gerbil or something like that, I'm all set. I'm good. All right, let's take this machine out and take a look at it. And you can still venture your guesses. There's plenty of time. Plenty of time. Yeah, this is the correct foot controller too. This is the correct foot controller. And I can show you the back of it to give you a big clue. Should I do that? If I show you the back of it, you'll know which models it's compatible with, and that'll narrow it down quite a bit as far as you guessing what model this machine might in fact be. You might already know, but maybe you don't. So I'll show you the back data plate and see if that helps as far as getting you on the right track and guessing which model Sheila and I traded for. I hope you can see that. I think you can. So remember again, if you're getting a Husqvarna machine, always check that foot controller to make sure that it's compatible with the Swedish Beauty that you have. Because they're going to perform differently with each machine depending on how those resistors, condensers, and all the other good stuff that the Swedish pour into their foot controllers, depending on how that's been set up will depend on how well that machine will work with it. The machine will work, but it's a matter of will it run optimally or not. And that's really the benefit in getting the right foot controller for the right Swedish Beauty. And I've covered that in other premieres too, I know I have. Excuse me. Alright, so let's take this Swedish Beauty out. I'm just going to slide this case back a little bit. I think I have enough room. I'm going to take out my extension bed. And I'll set the Swedish Beauty here for right now, just so you can take a little bit more of a look at it. I'll give you a little bit more time, and I'll kind of zoom in on it as well. So this next one is called the Emperor's New Nikes. The Emperor's New Nikes. Must have gotten shoes, I assume. Alright, I'll zoom in on the front of this and give you a little bit closer look at it. And you've already seen the foot controller, so you have at least a narrower guessing field as far as what this might be. So let's zoom in and take a closer look. And I'll just back up real quick again. You know what normally would go there, right? Yeah, the stitch width controller. So you already know that this is a straight stitch only machine because there's no stitch width controller. And if you saw the recent interview I had the chance to do with John Smith, who used to be working with sewing machines in the Navy and also with NASA, John discovered during that premiere, and it wasn't planned, it just happened, that his Swedish Beauty had what is called a slow gear. And that's this right over here. I'll just kind of pull it out and show you. Grab the outside of this little ring and pull it out. And then what that does is it takes the motor from full power down to 1/5. So you have better control in sewing without having to regulate that foot controller. Really having to meter out the power. This will meter it out automatically and take that motor down from full power to 1/5. And when you're done sewing slow and you want to resume regular sewing, you just push it right back in and you'll hear a little click, which is that there's basically an assembly inside of here that changes the speed of the machine by changing the gear ratio, and that gear then pops back into place so you can resume full speed sewing. And then also, if you don't know it, if you have a new Swedish Beauty and you're new to this field, you slide your bobbin on here and it automatically disengages the clutch. You don't have to do anything up here by the balance wheel. Well, you couldn't anyway because there's no clutch on the balance wheel, as you can see. There's just a screw. So yeah, it has that automatic feature, which is brilliant. One of the things that people love a lot about the Swedish Beauties is the slow gear, the auto clutch disengagement, and then obviously the jam-free raceway is another great feature on the Swedish Beauties as well. So, any guessing on the model yet? Again, on the foot controller, I gave you some really good clues, I think. It says that it is compatible with, let's see, the Class 19, the Class 21, the Class 2000, and the Class 8. And then it's a Type FR400 is the design of the foot controller. So, and again, you already know it's a straight stitch only machine. I'm just unscrewing the stitch controller a little bit because it was screwed all the way in. This is another nice feature about these rotary models by Husqvarna. Yeah, you can see it in the shot. Is they have a spring so that when you're going between, because on this model, all the way up is going to be reverse. So if you want to go in reverse, you can bring it all the way up, and then if you, I don't recommend you let go of it, but if you bring it down, that spring will pull it back down to the bottom automatically. So if you screw this in, here, I'll kind of turn it this way so you can see. If you screw it in, which is the way it was originally, then you can set what the boundaries are for that stitch length. So let's say I wanted to go between let's say I wanted to go between 0 and 2. Let's set it right around on 2. And then what I could do is, in order to develop stitch variations, is I could go up and down, and it's not going to go any further than that. Let me screw it in a little bit further. I didn't have it quite far enough in. There we go. So now if I want to go between, say, 0 and 2 and just have like a variation of that stitch, the straight stitch, so I can just go up and down like this. And it's not going to go any further than that. And again, if I want to go in reverse, I just go whoop. I can only go so far up because I have it screwed in right now, but it's a nice little feature. It sets those boundaries, and that way if you've got a specific pattern output as far as the look of your straight stitch, you can set it a lot more easily. But I generally like to have control over that, so I usually unscrew it so that I can enjoy the full range, and I can do it myself. Kind of like on that recent Necky Supernova, remember that, where it has the slider for the stitch width, not the stitch length, but the Necky has the stitch width slider. You can go back and forth and get variations in the stitch width and look at your zigzags. This one is kind of the opposite. You can do the same thing, but it's making variations with your straight stitch. And then again, for reverse sewing, you go all the way to the top, and that spring always pulls it back down. See that? So good engineering, good idea, good design. All right. So that was the Emperor's New Nikes, which I'm not sure what I thought of that. This next one is called Mama. Mama. Sounds like an Italian song, doesn't it? And again, if you're not real familiar with this machine, I already pointed out the side with the bobbin assembly. This is obviously for your feed dog drop right here. And again, it's a Sweden rotary. So let's look at the back of the machine, see if that gets us any closer to knowing specifically which model this is that Sheila and I traded for. Oh, one of those awful stickers. Can you see it already? Can you see that already in the shot? Yeah, you can. One of those nasty, awful stickers. Alright, if you haven't typed your guess in yet, it may be too late, because here we go. After we look at this nasty sticker. Oh, interesting. This machine was in Green Bay at some point. Automatic Sewing Centers, Green Bay, Wisconsin. How cool is that? Again, this came out of, yeah, Sheila's out of St. Louis, Missouri. So at some point this was in Wisconsin. Now it's in Wisconsin again. How cool is that? The Circle of Love. All right, here we go. So if you didn't type in your guess, it's probably too late, because I'm about to go up to the data plate. Here it goes. If you guessed already, and I didn't look at the chat, if you guessed an 8E, and this is specifically a Type 8E, which you've seen on this channel before, by the way, then I'll point that out to me, or I'll try to review it. And if you guessed it right, if you were the first one to guess it, I'll send you something special. But this is obviously a Type 8E, one of the earlier rotary series machines. And you can see if you look at the nomenclature plate, it has a 1 amp motor. But again, after I get done optimizing a motor, you're not going to be able to tell the difference really between a 1 amp and a 1.5 amp after it's left my workbench. So don't let the 1 amp be an obstacle to you, because this machine is, it has all the capabilities of doing all the sewing that the big boys with the 1.5 amp motors do. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab another piece of music. We're going to plug this in and see how it's running now right after arriving at the workshop, okay? So hold on just a second. So that was Mama. Now we're going to do Allegro. Allegro. And I think I'm going to move this case for actually testing out the machine. Well, that's not good. I hope the screw is still in there. Yeah, it is. Did you guys see this? Let me turn it this way. I was just taking this away from the case, and I was going to move the case, and I found, what are we missing? Yes, absolutely right. If you guessed we're missing the tensioner for bobbin winding, and there it is, floating around in the case. There's only a single little set screw or a bolt that holds this in place, and it obviously wasn't set properly. I see that the screw is still in there that holds it in this chamber, but see, this again goes down to attention to detail. Attention to detail, Sheila. All right, I'll come out on this shot, and we'll move this case out of the way. It is a beautiful case, though. I'll give kudos for the case, but not kudos. Look at that field of paper there. Can y'all see that? Yeah, you can see it. Ugh. I almost feel like I'm somehow contaminating this machine by putting it down in all of this stuff. I know it's just paper. I know it's shredded paper. I get that. But it's nasty. It's nasty. All right, so we're plugging it in and no sparks. I do have a fire extinguisher nearby if we need it, which hopefully we won't. I'm not getting any shock off of the machine. That's a good sign. And Sheila said that she had tested this, but it's the first time I've dealt with her out of St. Louis, Missouri, so I always approach it with a little bit of trepidation if I don't have a lot of experience working with somebody. All right, this next one, and those of you that celebrate Halloween, I'm not a big Halloween guy, but this next one is called Vampire. Vampire. All right, and I'm going to take out the bobbin case. When you've got an unknown commodity like this, it's always a good idea to remove the bobbin case just so you don't have the bobbin case in there where that needle could potentially strike it if it has a hook timing issue. So I'm going to take that out of there. Matter of fact, I'll leave that door open so we can kind of watch the raceway a little bit. Yeah, that feed dogs are frozen right now, so that's going to require a repair / service depending on what I find. All right, so let's go ahead and put the foot controller in, plug it in. Oh, this is interesting. I went to plug it in and look what happened right away. So what do you think that is? We're not depressing the foot controller, and as soon as we plugged it in, the machine is running like a banshee. What do you think it is? What's going on? Most often when something like this happens, it's because one of the resistors in the foot controller has failed. The resistor is what interrupts the flow of that electricity when the foot controller is not depressed. And right now it's not, it's basically like the dam is broken and all the water is coming through as soon as you plug it in. So let's try, I might have another foot controller. Let's see if I do. I had them out the other day and I was working with them, and now I'm having trouble getting my eyes on where that foot controller is. Where did I move it to? Oh, I see it. That's the only problem when you don't put stuff back in the same place. Your eyes are used to seeing it in a certain location, and you move it and then you can't see it at all. So let's see if I have a compatible foot controller that we can plug in. What is this one rated for? Okay, this one says that it's rated also for a Class 8, so let's see if this one might work. And I haven't tested this foot controller in a long time. Well, that's good sign number one. We plugged it in and nothing happened right away. So, and hopefully when I push it down, it hasn't been miswired on the inside of the machine, because what will happen when I complete that circuit is it'll cause a short and it'll cause my lights to blow out. So hopefully it doesn't do that either. Let's see what happens. You ready? How cool is that? Oh, Sheila, you didn't even tell me that there was an issue with that foot controller, but I had a backup that's rated also for this machine, so yay! But you can see when you're running it, if you're trying to do slow sewing and you're sewing through some real tight turns in that, you're having to regulate it completely by using the foot controller, at least one that works now. So, I mean, if you're really trying to go slow, see what a labor that is? And you're trying to do it with your foot. But if you engage that slow gear, and I don't know if this one works yet, I'll have to see. Watch what happens then. Let me zoom in on the needle so you can see. Listen to the motor. Listen to the motor and watch the needle. Watch the needle speed. So I'm pushing the foot controller down, and I'm going to push it all the way down. I kind of backed it off now. Look at the control. You're trying to go through a tight corner right now. You're joining some seams together and there's not a lot of tolerance. Watch this. I'm going to really slow it down. I'm trying to do it with 2 fingers. Well, you get the idea. What a difference as far as control, huh? So if you have a Husqvarna Viking, and it doesn't have to be this model, it doesn't have to be a Type 8E, it could be any of the Husqvarna models, knowing that these foot controllers have resistors and condensers in them. I'm actually going to open up the back of this and show you. And this is the one that Sheila sent with that has one of those resistors in it that has failed. So I'm going to open up the back. There's just 2 screws or 2 bolts on the back here. There's one right here, and then there's one right down here in the bottom, right between those 2 little rubber boots that give a nice flat but a nice non-skid type surface to the foot controller. So I'm gonna unscrew those. Here's my little magnetic tray. Oh, how interesting. So what does that tell you about that bolt that goes in the side of there? It's aluminum or some other non-magnetic alloy. Could be magnesium, but I doubt it. It's probably going to be an aluminum screw that is in this Husqvarna. So there is no, I mean, I can put it in my little tray, but there's no magnetic response to it. Oops. There's a tiny little washer that goes with it too. Don't lose it like I almost did right there. See that little washer? Teeny tiny. So I'll put that in the tray as well. And then once you take out those two little bolts, you can remove the back very easily. And inside of there, you'll see that we've got these two little interlays right here. Or I should say two little relays almost. One is going to be the condenser, and the other one is going to be the relay. And if I remember correctly, 240, 400 is this. The blue one should be the relay, and the gold color one should be the condenser. But in either case, right now, the foot controller is trying to feed that electricity through these, and instead of that resistor stopping the electricity until that foot controller is depressed, it's allowing it to flood through. So a solution that can be done, the foot controllers, you can either replace the resistor or the condenser, whichever one fails, or you can take them out and you can do a bypass. I wouldn't recommend it because the foot controller wasn't designed to do that originally, but you can do it. And that's probably what I'll consider doing. If I can't get a replacement resistor for this, then I'll probably do a bypass so that the foot controller is still usable. And that way it's, you know, nothing that's gonna go to waste. And this is also a good opportunity to show you the inside of this, because you can see that there are a number of brass contacts, like right in here. Critical brass contacts up here as well. And these all have to be serviced and cleaned. And you don't want to use machine oil or anything like that that has, you know, has those, what's the word I'm looking for? Not detergents. Well, anyway, you don't want to use oils. Anything that's oil-based or that has, you know, those elements in them. You want to use a straight cleaning agent like rubbing alcohol to strip that extra stuff off of there and to get those areas cleaned up. Down here as well, where the power comes in, you've got brass contacts, or excuse me, copper contacts as well that have to be cleaned. And even down here, right underneath here, where these two come together, when you depress it, this comes together with that, and it basically completes the circuit. I don't know if you can see that or not. I think you can. So you can see where you're going copper to copper, basically. And the cleaner that is, the better the foot controller is going to perform. Right now it's performing beautifully because when you plug it in, it runs continuously. But don't neglect your foot controllers, and that's not just true of the Husqvarnas, it's true of all of them as well. So, oh, the word I was totally blanking on, lack of coffee, are petroleum type products. Petroleum and other products like that that are going to have oil bases to them. You don't want to use that anywhere in electrical fields. So you use a natural cleaning agent similar to rubbing alcohol or rubbing alcohol, because that way it wicks off and it doesn't leave any residue behind. Make sense? This is fun too. It's a slightly different design on this one where it has a little roller as well. Some of them just have a plunger coming through. This one actually has a roller that goes back and forth for smoother operation. I'm sure that's why they designed it that way. I know, I could play with electronic things and electrical things all day long. But the good news is I had a backup as far as foot controllers that's fully compatible with this machine. And I'll actually show you the plate so you can see that. On this plate as well, this is the one that I just, obviously very dusty and dirty right now. But if you look at that plate, you can see that it's compatible with this Class 8, this Type 8E model as it is. So again, don't neglect this. You have to make sure that whatever foot controller you have, particularly with these Swedish Beauties because of the setup inside of them with the condensers and the resistors, that you have the right one. And it's possible that the one that has failed, that we just looked at, failed because it was plugged in to the wrong type of Husqvarna Viking. Again, some people look at it very simply. They see that it has the blade style plugins. They look at their machine and they say, well, that has blade style plugins. I guess they're compatible, but they're not always going to be compatible. And depending on the operation of the machine, depending on what was done to this foot controller, that may explain why that resistor in there ended up failing. So now when you plug it in, it's running continuously. Now, what's the other way that you can have where that motor is running continuously? Not just a failed resistor, pointing at the wrong one, not just a failed resistor or a failed condenser, but also if you don't follow my zone principle. Remember we just talked about the Husqvarna Viking, where the hot zones are zones 1 and 2, and we've talked about the Singers repeatedly, where with Singers, and we can use these little copper contacts right here as an example. We've got 1, 2, and 3. Let's just pretend that those are the zones on the back of one of those plug-in points, like on a Singer. Well, then we know that the outer zones, zone 1 and 3, are going to be the hot zones. On a FOF model like we just looked at, that belongs to Gloria, we know that the hot zones are going to be zones 1 and 2. So if you miswire, and I talked about this in that premiere, if you miswire a foot controller into those hot zones, if it's a FOF and you connect that foot controller to zones 1 and 2, and you connect the motor to 1 and 2, then along with potentially damaging that foot controller, you're going to have a motor that runs continuously because there's no interrupt. Same thing on a Singer. If you connect that motor and foot controller to zones 1 and 3, you're going to have a motor that runs continuously, just like this Husqvarna Viking is right now, but for a different reason, because this one has those condensers and resistors and there's been a failure. So keep that in mind when you're dealing with electricity. If you wired correctly, you get some great outcomes, and the machine is very happy. If you wired incorrectly, you can have some very surprising events happen, and even some very dangerous events happen as well. So I am pleased overall with my trade. I really did like my Singer 306 quite a bit. But this is also a real fine machine. Who knows? Maybe this could become one of the giveaways in the future. Maybe even in the near future. And also, if you're new to vintage machines, and particularly Husqvarnas, I'll just show you in the faceplate real quick. Show you a couple things. One thing is, when you're looking to date a machine, oftentimes you'll look for that serial number. On most machines, they're either going to be on the bottom of the machine or they're going to be on the front of the machine. The Swedish folks like to put them inside of the faceplate. And that was another comment that John Smith had made when we had that interview, and when I talked to him offline as well. He said, until I watched one of your videos, I didn't realize where the serial number was on the Swedish Beauties. And it's right there on that ridge inside of the faceplate area. So that's where they decided to put it. That's where it is. And also your presser foot pressure, if you're looking to make adjustments to your presser foot pressure, that's going to be inside of the faceplate as well, right there. And again, the simple rule on presser foot pressure is what? If you said the thicker the material, the more layers you're dealing with, if you're dealing with very thick and difficult materials as far as the stiffness of them and that sort of thing, then you're going to be looking at having to increase that presser foot pressure, because that pressure needs to be greater to move that material over the feed dogs and underneath the presser foot. And the way you do that on Husqvarna Vikings is by rotating this little, got to turn my screen around, by rotating this little disc right here. And on the Vikings, if you want to increase it, you rotate this disc to the rear. And right now it's pretty stiff, so I don't think it's going to move very easily. But you'll move it to the rear, and if you want to decrease, you move it to the front. And if you want to release all presser foot pressure, let's say you've got a real thick piece of quilt batting or something like that, and you're having trouble fitting it underneath the presser foot. And with this particular model, you do have a little bit of a hyperextension. That's what I'm activating right now by pushing that presser foot lever up outside of its normal operating range. It'll come out a little bit more. So you can always check that on your machine as well to see, I'll close this faceplate for a second, to see if you might have a presser foot lever that's going to have a little bit more play in it to allow you to bring that presser foot higher up. And this Type 8E does. You can just move it up and down a little bit more. And that shot is still not real good as far as showing you what's happening with the presser foot. Let me see if I can move that a little bit. And a lot of folks will never discover this about their machines, because when you're raising and lowering your presser foot, this is what you do, right? Up and down, up and down, up and down. But when you're in the up position, if you apply just a little bit more pressure, you're either going to get nothing, or you're going to get a response like this, where the way it's engineered and designed, it has just a little bit of extra flex in there. And in this particular instance, as I'm applying that hyperextension on this, I'm probably getting about 2.5 to 3 more millimeters of clearance, and that could make all the difference in the world. But in lieu of that, you open the faceplate, and I'll zoom in on it again so we can look at it more closely. But there's a little black tab that is designed as a quick release on the Husqvarnas. And not all of them have it. Not all of the models have it. This particular Type 8E does have it. And what that does is that releases all of the pressure. So you could literally, and we'll do that just to demonstrate it, you push this little tab in. Once I turn my screen around, you push this little tab in, and you can see that that whole presser foot assembly drops. So right now, as I'm lifting that presser foot lever, I can feel that there's little or no presser foot pressure on there at all. And you can see that this little piece right here of the presser foot assembly dropped down the little knob that we were using to increase and decrease. And right now the presser foot, if we try to move it, I'll actually show you. Let's say you're trying to put something super thick underneath there. Here, I'll just grab some material and I'll show you kind of what I'm talking about. So let's say I want to put this super thick piece of leather under there. But beyond that, I also have these additional layers as well that I'm trying to put underneath. And I can't fit them underneath there. See that? They won't fit. But now that I've released all the presser foot pressure, I can literally grab that presser foot bar and I can push it up. Just like that. Which means if I want to slide something really thick underneath there, I can pull it up, slide it into position, lower it down, and then I have to do one thing after that, because right now I have no presser foot pressure, right? And even if I lower the presser foot, I'm not going to have enough pressure to move that material if I'm going to try to sew it. So what you need to do is you need to come back up to here, and you need to re-engage the presser foot pressure. And the way you do that, the easiest way, is you put your finger on top of here and you put your thumb on the bottom of that little dial assembly and you simply push this up. And then it re-engages. So now we have presser foot pressure again. Again, to disengage it, if we have to put something thick underneath there again, you just push this little black tab in and you can hear it release. And then the re-engage, put your finger on top, your thumb on the bottom, and just pinch them straight up. And now we have presser foot pressure again, which probably was the wrong thing to do unless I can use the hyperextension to get this leather back out on the bottom. Otherwise, I'm going to have to disengage it again. Yeah, I can get away with it, thankfully. But that's the only thing you have to remember is if you disengage it, just re-engage it again. And I've had people bring Husqvarnas into the workshop and they say, I've increased the presser foot pressure and I'm not getting any material feed at all. And I'll look inside of the faceplate and lo and behold, guess what? It looks like that. This is in the down position, which means there's no presser foot pressure. And I'll say to them, I said, this is a very complicated, expensive repair. And they'll say something like, well, that's okay. I mean, I love my Swedish Beauty. I'll pay you whatever's reasonable to fix the problem. I said, okay, all right, just I'll take you on your word. Okay, I'm going to hold you to that. So I have them go in front of their machine and I say, okay, here's what I want you to do. And I'll mess with them completely. So I'll say, okay, I want you to take a screwdriver. I want you to take a screwdriver. And this is a very complicated procedure. Now move the screwdriver to your other hand. Now take your finger and put it on top. Put your thumb on the bottom and pinch those two together. Your machine is fixed. So I've said it before. Sometimes you can be facing what seems to be a daunting problem. You've messed around with your stitch upper tension. You've messed around maybe even with making adjustments to your bobbin case, and you're still having issues with stitch quality and your material is not feeding properly. It may have nothing to do with your stitch tension at all. It may strictly be an issue relating to your presser foot pressure. In this case, it might be that your presser foot pressure is non-existent because it's in the down position, and all you need to do is re-engage it. It may be that you have to make adjustments on this little dial. Again, rotating it to the rear if you want to increase, rotating it to the front if you want to decrease, and getting that right so that it's working in concert with that upper tension and with that bobbin case. So, you know, always be mindful that problems can sometimes be complex, like the complexity of the repair that would have to be done to this foot controller over here to break those solder points and to put a new resistor in there so that the foot controller operates as it's intended to be. Or it can be really, really simple, like over here when you're dealing with presser foot issues. And the functions of the machine. The functions of the machine where they have that quick release on there. So hopefully those tips are helpful to folks. And I know a number of people have contacted me, even one from Sweden that said some of the tips I've given in previous videos and premieres have really steered them on the right path. So it never hurts to revisit those things again and just make sure that you know, folks understand their machine. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So again, I think it was a good trade. I think this Type 8E is going to be a super machine. And I've got to try that extension bed before we end this premiere. I've just got to try setting that up real quick. I'm going to take my leather out. Yeah, you can see the thickness of that leather that I was trying to fit underneath there. It's absolutely, if I zoom in on it, it's absolutely ridiculous, especially that bottom piece. That's like gun holster leather or saddle leather. That is like going through patio blocks. Very, very intense. Very intense. Oh, that must be another piece of the leather that I was using to test on Carolyn's Foth hobby that I'm getting ready right now to send out to her on out in California. Those are the same stitches that are on her machine. Yep, that's what I did. Okay, so let's use that hyperextension to get this leather out of the way, and then I'm going to try to get this extension bed on. Because what is a Swedish beauty without an extension bed, right? Move that over to the side. Move this over to the side. All right, put my little leg down. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, let me move out there. What do you think? If you're a quilter and all you need is a straight stitch, if you don't need a zigzag stitch, the Type 8E is one of the finest machines. Any of the rotary machines within the Husqvarna family are fabulous straight stitch machines. And with the workspace that they afford, they're just perfect for those quilters that are putting together blocks and stuff like that, sewing blocks together on quilts. So I don't know. I'm thinking about it. I may go through this machine, and this may be the machine that I give away for this contest for us just hitting 9,000 subscribers. I'm thinking about it. I'm not sure. I'm not positive yet. I might do it. I might just do it. Because that is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful machine. Gorgeous machine. All right. I'm just checking something real quick. All right, well, I appreciate you indulging me through this premiere, and us having the opportunity to unbox this really cool Type 8E that I traded for a Singer 306. And the more I look at this machine, apart from the foot control issue, I think I got the better of the deal. I also think I get the better of the deal when it comes to this super cool hat that I have now. That is kind of a credit to all folks that love steampunk, right? What do you think? I like it. I like it. I might wear this more often. I'm not sure. But you can type in the chat whether you think it's cool or whether you think it's geeky or whatever. But this will be a fun one to put on occasionally. And it's going to be kind of my dance hat. If I go out dancing with Mr. Bean, guess what? I'm going to have this puppy on. Because it just right away gets you going, you know what I mean? All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, folks. And again, keep watch for that major contest. We've already hit 9,000 subscribers. Hans and I have those new contest parameters all defined. And I'm going to be shooting a video with him to introduce that contest, and then you're going to be able to win a Swedish beauty. I'm not sure if it's going to be this Type 8E, but it's going to be a gorgeous machine that you're definitely going to want. So stay tuned, okay? God bless. Oh! Class is dismissed.